Hello, ladies. How are you?
Wonderful.
Great. How are you?
Well, just so put it in context with the audience here, it is a day of recording. It is the 27th of July, and I have been 8 days post-operation.
I'm
And
looking amazing.
oh,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. And I think what struck me most was the amount of tears I shed. Like tears when I was nervous before surgery, tears the day of surgery, tears after because of pain or discomfort, and then tears from today, finding out that the cancer has been completely removed from my body. And for the longest time, I actually was thinking about this. For the longest time, I always would, do that deep swallow so you didn't cry. Like, you're going to be a brave little girl and you're not going to cry. And sometimes it's so lethargic to have that, what I call snot rolling, tear jerking, give me the box of tissues, cry.
Mhm.
And I did do that the day before my surgery, to be honest, just out of fear and anxiety and the unknown. And right afterwards, it felt like all the stress was relieved from me. So my question to you guys are you a crier? And are you what I call myself a closet crier?
Good questions.
I have no problem giving a big cry. I even watch myself in the mirror to make sure I get really crying.
I never thought of that.
Oh my God. You want to start crying your eyes out? Watch yourself in the mirror. Yes, blah, 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 blah. And you start talking to yourself. It's a whole different level. But I think it's just a physical thing. I've talked to my daughters about this because I said, I don't know if it's what we've learned as we grew up, but not to cry. And when we get frustrated, when we get anxious, our natural thing to get that energy out is to cry. And I've tried to do stuff like other things, but you know what? Crying relieves the stress. It relieves the anxiety. So I have no problem crying, depending, where I am. I might hold it for a bit, but I think a good cry is really good for you. Tracy?
Wow.
I grew up learning that if you cry, it is a complete sign of weakness.
Yep.
Yeah.
That you are not to cry under any circumstances. And if you are in a situation where crying would be normal, like a funeral or something like that, it was like, you be strong. You just be strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I, it's hard for me to cry. It's funny. I had a coach. I nicknamed her my crying coach because we would talk about things that were very emotional to me, and I would have to just stop talking because it's that whole thing. It's just rising, right? And I just was like, okay, if I start crying, I'm never going to stop.
Right.
Like it's just never going to stop. So
Yeah.
I can't do that. So we would literally, I would just stop talking and I couldn't talk. I mean, we'd have sessions where I'd talk for 10 minutes and then I couldn't say anything because I'd be like, I got to hold this down, hold this down, hold this down. And so finally she was just like, what would happen if you just let that out? If you just kind of released that? I said, I'm afraid to, I just can't do it. And so it gradually evolved that I was able to cry a little bit, and then I would have to turn my camera off and put myself on mute because I didn't want her to see me or hear me. Right? It's like, this is embarrassing. All the shame that went with crying. It was so interesting. I still to this day have a hard time, just having a really good cry. It's a very overwhelming emotion for me to cry. Very overwhelming.
I think that's why I call myself a closet crier, because I can hold my emotion in. And when I feel that I am holding it down and not releasing it, and it's not good for me, like it is the stress level, whatever it is, that is like, I will go into a room by myself. I've cried in the shower where no one can hear me. I've cried privately. I'll cry with my, when we got the news or whatever with my partner, I shed tears and this and that. I'm not somebody who can cry at the drop of a hat going out. I have to be very comfortable where I am to cry. And then there's the thought of a tear can just, roll down, or like you said, Tracy G, having that good heartfelt, like, holy crap, I need to just get mad, release things and let this frustration out, And I think my concern is when I watch my children. Now I have boys. So, it is, you are weak, especially as a man, if you cry. And that's one thing that I have a huge concern with, because I have both my boys, I've never seen them shred much of a tear outlet, and I've seen them at funerals and at different things. And one of my sons, as you know, is a Marine, and that's even more so. Like, it is stern, you don't cry. And when him and Amber lost their dog, who they were extremely close with, I was concerned, because if he doesn't release that grief, like, other things can happen. You can take your grief out in other unhealthy ways. And Amber did let me know that he had that snot pouring, hysterical crying, released everything out. And okay, so you don't have to be crying all the time, but when it's needed, I do think it's a healthy, strong emotion.
What about being around people who cry, like handling somebody else's tears?
I was thinking about that, because here we are, talking, do you have a problem crying? We all probably grew up in the generation of, you're weak if you cry.
Yeah.
And then there are people that I know that can, if they sneeze wrong, they cry hysterical. And I look at them like, really? Like, and I've tried to pull back that judgment, because in my mind, I think from my out looking in, there could be outlying issues of why that person cries. So why am I passing that judgment?
It's hard not to, though, isn't it? Like, when you see, like, when you're triggered by something, it's hard not to react and then catch that awareness and go, oh yeah, like, this is probably not good, right? I always say, when you point a finger at somebody, 3 point right back at you. So be careful how you want to point that finger,
like
right?
that.
So, yeah,
I
it's
like that.
before you start passing judgment and doing that. Yeah, so it is interesting. I'm very easy. It's easy for me to be in the presence of somebody crying. It doesn't bother me. But But yeah, that overwhelming emotion that comes with crying, I really find that hard, very difficult to process. I'm getting
Now,
better at it, but yeah.
Tracy E, with you having that, you know, you need to be strong, the whole thing. How did you teach your daughter when it came to crying, or both of you, Tracy G's and Tracy, you know, did you portray to your daughter, like, don't cry, you need to be strong? Or were you more empathetic to have her, allow her to bring her feelings out?
I think I would like to say that I you know, was more empathetic and let her feel, you know, encouraged her to let her feelings out, that feelings were, any feeling was okay. It's just something that needs to be processed, right?
Right.
It's not a good thing and bad thing, right? Try not to label that. It'd be interesting to ask her that question.
Yeah, I
Because what
think,
we think our reality is as we're bringing up our kids, and what we think we've done is not necessarily how they've perceived it, right?
right, right.
Mm.
And I just, you know, I think when it comes to the emotion of crying, we don't acknowledge that it's okay all the times.
Mhm.
And we don't use it as a form of self-care, because it is a form of releasing stress. It
Mhm.
is a form of helping you through a mental health, whatever you're going through. It is no different than a release of when you're stressed and you go for a run, or if you're stressed and you journal it out. It's not, you shouldn't force the crying, but if you have that feeling of it, then go into a room and cry. You know?
I want to go back to you, Tracy G, though, and ask you, when did you have that experience of crying in front of the mirror
Yeah.
that you decided, yeah, this is what I need to do if I'm going to cry? How did that look?
I think because I'm vain.
You're the best.
I grew up like you, where it was you strong, strength. You did not
Mhm.
cry. You did not cry. And then, you know, I had lost grandparents, and you had that cry. But when I lost my sister and my mom, I learned a different depth of crying. And I think that's where, because I kind of talked myself through that. And that's probably like, I just wanted to kind of talk to someone, talk through my emotions. And I went from not being a crier to being a crier at pretty well during, and that was quite a few years in between, but that's when I learned to let my emotions out. And just this Saturday, I cried at an engagement party because I was talking to one of the family members, and we were remembering something about my mother, and I started to tear up and I started to cry, and we just kept talking. I just said, don't mind me. And they were fine with it. And it was not a bad cry. It was just a release of emotion because it brought back a very strong memory. And I think the more I've learned to cry also has allowed me to connect to much deeper, joyous cries, where I didn't have that effect. It was a joyful cry, but now they're really, really, really deep. And so I think everyone should cry. And like I said, crying in the mirror was more talking to myself and just talking through the emotion. Like you guys like to journal, and this is probably just a quicker way at that particular moment. But I strongly recommend it because you've got some emotions coming back to you from yourself. And for my kids, when they were old enough, when my mom passed, that I said, I'm going to be very emotional, and don't be sad, and you're welcome to join me in my emotion. And I've always taught them that as women, they probably tend to cry more than yell on certain things, and just allow it. Don't judge yourself, and don't get upset that you're crying over something. You know what? It's just an emotion.
Right.
So
Right.
good. So good.
Yeah. And we give women permission to be, if you're angry, say you're angry. If you're happy to express happiness, we want women to be vocal in what they need, but yet if you cry, you're weak. And that's just that's another thing that I think we look at how we were brought up,
Yeah.
right, wrong, or indifferent. We're never bashing how we were brought up or what the times were, but it is probably going to lead into you'll hear more in our next episode about how you're brought up and how that embeds those beliefs into you. So you have this belief, if you cry, you're weak. Don't show that weakness. And I still struggle with that a little bit. I lost my dad and my stepdad 17 days from each other. Yeah. And when I came home from, my stepdad was first, and then my dad was shortly after, 17 days later. When I came home from that, there were tears. There were tears at the funeral. There were tears when Taps was played. I did his eulogy, the whole thing. But when I walked in this door and said to Pete, and I knew I was home in a safe area, I completely lost it. Like I just let everything fall. There was no more strength needed. I didn't have to be good for anybody. I didn't have to do anything. It was my little safe space. And that's what I did. So it's my way of giving myself permission to be that emotion out.
You don't have to be strong all the time. You're allowed to be emotional. And I think we also grew up that not only about crying showed weakness, is that, oh, you're a woman and you're getting all emotional. You're getting all emotional. There she goes. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Regardless of what, oh, you're getting hysterical.
Yeah.
You're crying.
It must be that time of the month again. She's crying.
It could be that you were passionate about something or you were deeply affected. No, there was always a little label attached to it.
Tears don't always have to mean sadness either.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you go back in our past episodes, you'll see our interview with Amber, and you'll know I was there when she crossed the finish line at 250 miles, and there were tears.
Yeah.
There were tears from a lot of us, and not one bit of it was sadness. It is okay to show joyfulness through tears, happiness through tears. Tracy, I'm sure the story you were saying about your mom, they were a mix of tears, mix of you missing your mom, and mixed of such a memory of your mom.
Yeah.
So that's all okay. It's just an emotion.
Yeah.
Unless we indulge in it.
True.
And that's the other thing. Where's the fine line? Is there one?
I don't know.
Can
Can somebody be too happy?
Pardon me?
Can somebody be too happy?
No, I mean about the crying where you're.
Right. So I'm going to the other extreme. Can you cry too much, or can you?
Yeah, right.
Or can you? You could always go to an extreme.
That's a good point.
In everything, but I think that's a personal choice. I don't know.
I think sometimes that there can be, when I think of indulgent emotions or indulging in emotions, to me what comes up are negative things, that you're indulging in some negative emotion and it's keeping you where you are, because happiness it's more like an emotional freedom, like it's just a good thing. Whereas if you're feeling bad, when we feel bad, we're very closed in. We just, our bodies tend to fold in on themselves, and our minds aren't operating the way they normally operate, right? Because we're stuck in that space. That's sort of how I think of an indulgent emotion. So I don't know, can you indulge too much in crying? That's a possibility, I guess. Everything's a possibility.
But I think for me, the crying gets me to the next place, right? It's the release. So if
Yeah.
I stayed in that mode, then I'm not moving forward. I'm not getting
Yeah,
through whatever I'm
exactly.
dealing with. So
Yeah.
I
Yep.
just don't know physically how long you can cry for either.
No.
Yeah.
I
You know,
think
you've had those where your eyes are like dried and
Oh, yeah.
they hurt, they're feel gritty, you know, it's just like
Yeah.
you've had one of those just cries. And I don't know how long you can actually do that physically.
So with that, let us know in the comments if you are a crier or not. And how do you feel after you cry? Like sometimes I felt like relief. I felt like really this burden fell off of me. So let us know. And you heard me talk about an episode with Amber and the toy Tears of Joy. And if you haven't listened to that one, go back down, look in our past ones, pick that one. It's one of our good ones to view. Put a comment if you have any questions or any questions on crying or anything that you would like to hear from us. Subscribe and make sure you hit that notification to make sure you know when our next episode comes out.
And I want to make sure that if anyone has a comment, if they look at themselves in the mirror when they cry, or is this just some unique thing I do? Bye for now.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.